everybody, it's your friendly neighborhood Jerry Rasco here with you again, and it's time for another amazing Spider-Man art retrospective video. I just want to start by saying thank you to everybody who has been following this series of videos. I check regularly for comments and views, and I really appreciate everybody who is checking these out, seems to be enjoying them, and supporting the channel and these efforts. So thank you so much for that. If you do like the videos, make sure to subscribe. Make sure you check off notifications. These do come out every Monday at 8 a.m. So you want to make sure if you want to get right onto it and check it out first thing, you'll want to be notified when that video hits. I also have a bunch of other videos on my channel here regarding my own comic book creations, updates on those, some process art videos, things where I talk about how I turn a script into a comic book page, tools that I use, inking process, drawing process, stuff like that. So if you're interested in those, make sure you subscribe to the channel and check all that out. But today we're here to talk about Spider-Man, and today's Spider-Man is a very, very cool one. If you're a fan of Spider-Man, you may know where we're heading with this, but I'm super excited about it. So we're going to jump right into it. Today we're looking at Amazing Spider-Man number 14. And here we go. Boom. Amazing Spider-Man 14 is the first appearance of the Green Goblin. So if you're a Spidey fan like I am, you know this is huge. So far, we've seen a lot of other villains come up. We've seen things like the Vulture a couple of times. We've seen Dr. Octopus a lot. And sort of Dr. Octopus was set up originally to be Spider-Man's, arch rival or arch nemesis. But as we see here, as we get to issue number 14, this new creation is going to take the cake. Green Goblin is going to eventually trump all of Spider-Man's other villains as his number one enemy. So super cool to see it. Interesting cover. So this does reflect what happens in the story. They are trapped in a cave. We have a guest starring appearance from the Incredible Hulk, which is pretty neat. We'll talk about that. But this is a weird pose for a cover, so I get it. He's sticking to the ceiling because that's what Spider-Man does. And the Goblin is there, and then we also have the Enforcers, which are villains that we've seen in the past as well. So I don't know if maybe it kind of feels like what we call the trade dress, which is all of these word blurbs and the title and all that stuff. Like that was almost laid out, and then they gave this whatever space was left and said, "Hey, Steve Ditko, make a cover out of what this space is left." Because it's a very weird pose here. It's actiony in that you've got the Green Goblin flying in. He's got the blast that he has from his glove is flaming. He's got looks like a grenade in his hand, but Spidey is very passive, just sort of hanging on the ceiling. So anyway, kind of weird. But I will point out we have another green and purple villain. So we've seen, I'll go through the list yet again. We have the Sandman. We have the Lizard. We have Dr. Octopus. We have the Vulture. All showing green and purple. Electro has green and yellow. And now we have another green and purple villain. And as I've talked about, when it comes to colors and the psychology of colors, when you talk about what we look at as more heroic colors, we talk about the primary colors, which are red, blue, and yellow. And then the secondary colors are the colors you make mixing those two of those colors together. So green is yellow and blue, purple is blue and red, orange is red and yellow. And so we use those on most of our secondary or villainous characters, if you will, to show that they are not heroic. The Hulk is a different story, but as we talked about before, the Hulk isn't a true hero in the classic sense of the term. The Hulk is a monster who kind of ends up doing heroic things, not in spite of himself, but despite his goal is just to get away from people. And he's often put in situations where he does things that end up being heroic, but Not your traditional hero, more of a monster. And so that's why he's green when wears purple pants. So anyway, that all lines up. Let me also preface this before we keep going any further. This is a PDF scan from 2004 that Marvel made of this original book. So this is what it would have looked like back in the 60s when this book came out. We will see the original advertisements. You'll see the paper, the yellowing paper. You can see here the cover's in pretty rough shape, but to be honest, there's not a lot of these left in existence. So, you know, it's nice that we're able to see it completely and also see it not in a reprint. These, of course, have been reprinted many times, but a lot of times they get recolored, especially nowadays using modern computer coloring. And that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for what the original was, because it's part of how the creation happened. How was this book made is all part of the technology that was available at the time. So really important stuff. So here we go. So again, interesting cover, great Goblin. Spidey pose a little weird, but hey, it's a key issue, the keyest of key issues. So we're going to move ahead. We're back to our montage on page 1. Again, a scene from the book. So in the previous issue, I think it was, we saw where the splash page here on page 1 led right into the action. It was something that was actually happening. But here, that's not the case. We have the Green Goblin. He's throwing what we later find out is these bombs that he uses that create this smoke, an explosion in smoke. So we have that scene here of the two of them in action, which is a good splash page. I would have liked to see Spidey maybe twisted towards us a little more, right? Maybe twisting so we see his face, but you don't have to see his face to know it's Spidey. That costume is so unique. But then it goes right into the story. So this isn't really page 1. This is just an illustration. This could have been theoretically the cover. I'm sorry for the sniffing, by the way. Allergies right now are killing everybody in this area, so my apologies. But it doesn't have the information about the Hulk. It doesn't have information about the the imagery and the enforcers and stuff like that. But this is a pretty cool cover in and of itself. But now we go to whoever this mystery person is. Some of us know. No spoilers here, so we'll find out when the original readers found out. Making this persona of the Green Goblin. And I like the mask. I like how it's looking at this person in the background who apparently has a very extravagant scientific laboratory and is building what is he calls a flying broomstick, which is pretty funny to think of the Goblin riding around on this mechanical broomstick. Very quickly, it turns into what we end up knowing from all kinds of media as his glider, a Goblin glider, kind of shaped more like a bat than a broomstick, because this just doesn't make a lot of sense. But there we go. So, but I like the way the mask is looking at him. I think that's very cool. Pages 2, 3 here and 4, we are back to the grid format. So again, the pacing is going to be fast. When you use this grid format, things are happening at a rapid pace. The Green Goblin is going to introduce himself to the criminal world. That's his whole goal. He wants to take over the underworld, the criminal underworld, if you will. And so he's going to use the enforcers as part of his plan. So he comes in and sort of asserts dominance over them. Then he goes to this movie producer and convinces him to make a Spider-Man movie, which of course is going to turn into a big trap, right? And the movie producer's too dumb to figure it out. And why would you take advice from a man in a costume flying in through your window? Like, it's crazy. But that's comic books. So, but the pacing here is fast. Things are happening rapidly. He flies in. He tells them, hey, I got an idea. You get me and the enforcers and Spider-Man, and I will make you a movie that will blow all the box office records away. And the guy's like, oh, that's cool. That sounds great. Let's do it. So then we get to school here. We get a little bit of Peter and his classmates, and things are changing to the better for him. They're starting to respect him a little more. But he hears about this guy flying around, so he goes to find out. And here we have this really nice horizontal page. So we go from the grid format and we break it a little bit for this big action meeting. So here you go. This panel, this image is the first meeting of the Green Goblin and Spider-Man. So pretty cool. I like so you can see in the previous page, the Goblin is sort of just sitting there on his flying broomstick, riding around, waiting to catch Spider-Man's attention. And here he's got this little bit of a startled body pose where the legs are kind of akimbo, and then one hand is out, the other one going back. Spidey's leaping, because he's launched himself with his webbing. And then you just have this sort of very vague cityscape below. And that's okay, because we want the focus to be on the first interaction of these two characters. So I like the use of that big horizontal page. It gives us the motion of Spider-Man coming across, and then gives us more room for something that's good. In today's comics, this could be a whole splash page in and of itself, because we know it's going to be important, or at least maybe half of the page, because this would be your key image for the whole page. So he tells him what the plan is. Spidey goes to talk to the movie guy and works out a deal, and he's like, man, I'm going to get some money. Peter's always short for money, so here's his opportunity. Comes up with all of his excuses on why he needs to go. And I like this Aunt May. Again, I've talked about how Steve Ditko draws really unique characters. Their faces are different. Their body styles are different. And Aunt May really looks like an old lady. And here's some things. Let's zoom in a little bit on Aunt May. There's like the way that the mouth is kind of sunken in. Maybe she has dentures, maybe she doesn't, but the line from the nose to the top lip has extended, right? So all the wrinkles, her ears are slightly larger, their ear lobes, as these things continue to grow as you get older. And so, and the wrinkles into even the neck. Really nice depiction of someone who's actually old. It's not just a face with white hair. He really took the time to study what does an older person look like, and added that to the facial structure. The other thing I like here is Peter is talking about why he wants to go out to the West Coast, because he's got to come up with an excuse why Peter would be there. And Aunt May is knitting. Now, they could just be talking. You could just, again, if you're not a good storyteller, you might just draw these two figures standing there talking to each other. But what does he do? He sets her in a chair near the window. So she's an older lady. She's looking out the window, seeing what's going on, doing some knitting. She's talking to him, but her eyes are down. She's looking at that knitting. I follow a couple of different podcasts based on television shows that I like. And, some of the actors will talk about the production of television shows. And one of the things that they use, the term they use is business. Can I do business? And what that means is the scene says two characters are talking to each other, but while we're talking, can I do some business? So can I pick up my phone while we're talking and go, no, and keep talking? Or if we're, it's a scene and we're in an office or something, I've got a pen and some paper, and you're talking to me, and I'm writing some notes, and I go, oh, yep, and then I put it down. So, getting throwing in a little business, it livens up the character. It makes them real. So I really like that, and that's great storytelling that not everybody would take the time to add in there. Because I guarantee you, Stan didn't write a script that says Peter goes to talk to Aunt May and she's sitting by the window knitting. He just says, hey, on this page or somewhere, Peter has to explain to Aunt May why he's going to Hollywood. And Steve is the one that went, well, what is this old lady going to be doing while they're talking? She's knitting. Perfect. She could have been washing dishes, making dinner, folding laundry. She could have been watching TV. She could have been playing piano. I mean, she could have been doing anything. But the fact of the matter is a lot of artists just wouldn't think to have her doing anything. So really appreciate that. Now we're back to, once we get through the introductions, we get back to the grid, because now we've got high-paced action fighting. And of course, Spidey thinks it's a movie, and he's like, why are these guys, hitting so hard? What is going on? I really like this one. So this little guy, his name is Fancy Dan, and Fancy Dan is supposed to be like a martial arts expert. And the way he's leaping in the air and twisting his arm through while Spidey is leaping to avoid the lasso, that's some really nice figure work there of interacting these two figures and twisting the bodies around to get the most energy and the most excitement out of the page. It could have just been him swinging a punch, very stand-up, which is kind of more what you see here with the big guy Ox. He's going to have a more traditional stand-up punch, like a fight, like a street fight or a boxing match almost. This guy needs to be more. He's small, and he's supposed to be using martial arts type techniques, so he needs to be more limber, more active, and I really enjoy that whole thing. You feel like there's so much going on, but you can see it all in the panel. So that's a great one there. And then I mentioned in this one here, again, we're back into the grid and fast action. So, and I think I've talked about this before. There was an issue with, I'm trying to remember. I think it was the Enforcers. I think it was the Big Man and the Enforcers, and Spider-Man is fighting in like a garage, like a chop shop. And there's villains all over, so he's constantly flipping from one to the other to the other. And I mentioned how Steve Ditko does an amazing job of keeping the continuity of what Spidey's body is doing throughout it. So, right, so he's here, he's been punched backwards, so he's falling backwards. The rope then gets around his feet, because as he's falling backwards, his feet go up, pulls him over. So now he's flipped over and he's using his momentum to bounce to get out of the rope. This guy's coming in behind, flips him, jumps forward. Like the whole thing, I feel like he didn't draw the images in between, but he certainly thought out what would happen, right? And so the continuity of the body language is really important, and Steve Ditko does such a great job, maybe, better than a lot of other artists, certainly of the time, and even today. So really nice work there. And then this one, I said I really enjoyed these panels here, 3, 4, 5. So I like this body language. He's got the lassos all wrapped around him. He's on his toes, but the weight is back over him, over his center, and the way his arms are pinned. I really, really like that. You can tell the rope is larger in the foreground going away from us, so some nice perspective to make a little bit of space and distance in that scene. And then this is a thing we'd see more with Superman. We think of Superman bursting the chains, right? Very classic Neil Adams image. But Spidey's no slouch, and he can burst a rope as well. So that's a cool thing we don't see Spider-Man do a lot, is really flex that strength that he has. I mean, so if you're a super comic nerd like me, you know that later in time, Marvel would do stuff where they would sort of try to quantify or explain all their characters, their histories, their powers. And they did this thing called the Marvel Handbook. And at some point, they identified that Spider-Man could bench press 10 tons. So Spider-Man could pick like a bus up over his head. So we don't always get that. We know he's strong. And here, like we'll see in the next page, he's got, 3 normal human beings are like holding him, trying to hold him down, and they can't. But he's certainly strong enough to break a rope just by flexing. And we don't see Spidey, again, really display that massive strength. So that's a nice opportunity there. And then again, I really like this body language where he's getting high load, right? So he's got that, he's getting chop blocked down here and hit from the top. This is a personal foul penalty in the NFL today, but all's fair in game in a fight. So, he's already been grabbed. He's flexing and flexing backwards. So his, when Ox punches from the top and Fancy Dan takes out that knee, man, it just makes sense that his body would go over backwards like that. You can just feel it. You can see that motion. I can see it in my head, what happens between these panels. Fantastic um, um, continuity and action. So here again, another nice horizontal panel where he's, flinging these guys off him to show, again, these three dudes, and this Ox dude is supposed to be real strong, yet Spidey can just shake him off from a prone position, just kind of launch his body up and throw him away. And I like the break of again, if you got to show big action, use a big panel. That's a nice touch. We get into some more stuff here, and the thing I noted on this one that I really don't like, and I think I've talked about it a couple times, and that is you never want, like Spider-Man here, this is good. You never want your characters to set their feet or their hands on the border of the panel. Instead of them being inside the comic, it makes the image to the reader look like it is on the surface of the paper. And so you lose all that illusion of depth that we're looking through this into an image, right? And so what we've got here is the Goblin is signaling with a thumbs up, and that thumb, and there's a little bleed in the ink, but that's just the age or printing. But basically, that thumb is right on that panel, and then the edge of this foot is not quite, but it's pretty close. And it just really makes... same thing with, like, the top of his head is right on this lettering block. Like, that's a bad place to put that. Or, maybe they could have shrunk up some of the dialogue here. But it really makes the Goblin look super flat. It doesn't look like he's a figure in space. It looks like it's just a flat drawing on top of a panel, on top of a piece of paper. So just something to avoid whenever possible. Don't have your figures end with their limbs, especially like their bottom of their feet, their hands, right on those panel borders. So as an artist, if you're making your own comics, try to keep that in mind. Nobody's perfect, but something definitely to keep your eyes open to. Okay. Here, nice shadows. So they go into this dark cave, and we've got the classic trope of picking them off one by one out of the dark, because, of course, Spidey can find them before they can find him. So I like the silhouette here. I like the shadow on this face right here is very, very nice. Really gives a creepy vibe as far as what's happening. And like I said, Spidey's picking them off one by one. So that's cool. Now the Goblin's like, that's it. I'm gonna get him. And again, more pacing, fast panels, 6-panel grid, lots of stuff going on. The Goblin's throwing more of his bombs, and then all of a sudden, boom, we have the Hulk. So we have not only the Hulk, but we have a Steve Ditko drawn Hulk. So I know Steve Ditko did do some issues of the Incredible Hulk early on, but it's just interesting. We don't really think of the Hulk and Steve Ditko, right? The Hulk is almost entirely considered a Jack Kirby creation and Jack Kirby character. So it's fun to see Steve doing his take on this character. So how we've seen him draw Spider-Man, we've seen him draw characters like the Green Goblin and stuff, characters that are more thin, more nimble, stuff like that. How does he draw a big hulking character? And he did very well. He's big. He's hairy. He's got some hair on his legs and arms and stuff like that, on his chest as well. So he does a really good job of bringing a lumbering energy to the Hulk. And then, of course, like I've said before, if you got big action, I want a big panel. So for me, again, in modern comics, we would probably handle this differently. Your introduction of the Hulk coming through this smoky haze would probably be a much bigger panel. Maybe even on a page turn, that might be the first thing you want to see, to surprise the reader, to go, whoa, the Hulk is here. And then, even though the cover told us the Hulk is going to be here. And then this is good as far as just a big panel of him attacking. And then it gives also the horizontal, gives a nice action of Spidey leaping away. Great pose there. Good foreshortening. We've talked a lot about foreshortening, which is when something is coming at you, it looks shorter than if it's flat to your perspective because the physical object overlaps itself. And so nice foreshortening on the leg here in front of him. So that's actually can be a really tough pose to get right, to have how much you foreshorten that thigh as it's coming towards the reader. So again, great action, great poses, continuity of movement as Spidey's leaping around and trying to get the drop on the Hulk here maybe, and you just can't get an edge. Another really nice use, again, big action, big panel, but I'm going to point it out again, super close. Don't end your fist on that panel border. This is an opportunity because this action is so big. I would bring this arm up even higher and I would have Spidey break the panel. And that's something you want to use very sparingly as an artist, is having your characters break the panel. But when you do, it tells you his action, his energy is so big, it can't be contained in the book. That's the psychology behind doing it. And in something like this where he's punching, having the character break the panel, maybe his, so his foot down at the bottom, this arm up at the top, I would definitely consider doing that rather than putting it right here at this border. That means Spidey is swinging as hard as he can, and Hulk just shrugs it off. But breaking that panel border would really help to sell that energy. Let's see here. Think of Spidey punch. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Again, just moving through a fast pace. The Hulk gets away, wanders off. The Goblin also thinks he's won, so he takes off. Spidey hides in this little pond or this little pool under, so he's safe for now. And now he goes and grabs the unconscious enforcers that he's taken out to make sure that the Hulk doesn't hurt them, because Spidey is your ultimate good guy. And then I really like this leap. So this is a really great leaping pose with the arm below pushing off the rock, and then the legs forward, twisting the body and head back to sort of wave almost. Again, boy, I don't know. Maybe it's just I happened to notice it today and I've been missing it on other books, but again, ending that finger on the panel. Man, it's so small. It's not the end of the world, but how hard is it to just change that angle by a couple degrees of these fingers and you don't have to worry about it? So again, something to definitely think about. But great leaping pose, really, really nice action there. And then I like this lean. So Spidey comes to talk to the movie producer, and of course this guy is like a complete Fruit Loop. So he's like, Spider-Man's gonna make me millions, and they start filming, and they're like, hey guys, the Hulk was there, we had to stop. And he's like, the Hulk, let's film the Hulk, let's get the Hulk will be even bigger. And they're like, what are you talking about? No, we gotta get the Hulk. And he's like, yeah, we're not doing a Spider-Man movie. Spider-Man's, you're done, this is nothing. We got to get the Hulk's the hot thing. And he's like, give me a break. But I like this lean. So he webs the guy's cigar. He could have just been standing there. He could have been walking away or whatever. But this is some nice business, right? Putting his hand on the hip, leaning on the table. Just a nice sort of pose of somebody who's like, are you kidding me? Like, he can't, give me a break kind of thing. So really nice body language there. And again, something that's real subtle. It's not in the script. I guarantee that. But something that the artist brings to the table in terms of just selling that body language and Peter's state of mind, his emotional feeling. You get it. So then we get back to the last page here, and we have that creepy mask. So the Green Goblin goes back to his lair. He thinks he's like, hey, things didn't work out, but have to try again. And since nobody knows who I am, I can always just bide my time as regular old me, and then I'll come back and be the Green Goblin another time. And this mask waits just stretches out over, you know, a base or something where he's laid it down is just very weird and creepy, and I liked it. I thought that was a nice touch, and here we go. And now the Green Goblin could be anybody. It's a dude wearing a suit. Who knows? Wink, wink. We know, but who knows? In the comic book world of the 1960s, nobody knows. So there we go. So there is The Amazing Spider-Man number 14, and the first appearance of the Green Goblin, no doubt Spider-Man's #1 arch nemesis. So a lot of really good stuff there. Definitely some things to learn as a young artist, or just any artist who's studying comic book art. There's some stuff that you could take away that's really important. The action, the continuity of the motion, when to use big action equals big panels, things like that. And then maybe some things not to do. Be careful of your panel borders. Don't have your characters resting their hands and feet on it. It really flattens them out. Maybe think about breaking panel borders once in a while when it's appropriate. So there's, again, some good art lessons there for us, which is, hey, that's the reason we're doing it. This video series is to take a look at the past, learn from it, and use it in our own storytelling. So there we go. Again, we're going to just remind everybody, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Think about subscribing to the channel. Don't forget notifications. If you like these videos and you want to see them every Monday morning, make sure you hit the notification so you'll be notified when the video is up. Also, I do have some books of my own that are out right now. M Squad number 2 is out on Indiegogo. Check that out. Just search M-Squad on Indiegogo and consider backing or at least sharing the campaign. I'm also going to have another project out later this year called The Just. We'll have more updates to that. We have pages being colored right now. Super excited to show you those once we get a few more back. So think about, again, subscribing here to the channel to keep up with all the details on what's going on with me and my comics. So thank you all. Appreciate it. And we'll see you next week for yet another Amazing Spider-Man art retrospective video. Thank you all so much.